Welcome, everybody, to the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel. My name is Ross Benjamin, host of the show, and it is Thursday, September the 14th. I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone and Mr. Kyle Hunter. Kyle of gamblersworld.net, Doug of DocSports.com, and myself of gamblersworld.net as well. If you haven't figured it out already, Gamblers World is our sponsor. So, again, folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, take a second to do so. It costs you absolutely nothing. You're watching because you're a sports bettor. You're watching because you like the information we're presenting to you, and it's absolutely free to do so. There's no strings attached. If you're on your PC, a WC logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your video box. If you're on your mobile device, you'll see a black subscribe button right underneath your video box. Just click on either, and that'll get you subscribed. And I'm going to ask you to take one step further, go into your YouTube settings, and hit that notification alert bell for the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Channel, and you'll be alerted immediately upon any of our podcasts going up on our channel. Okay, fellas, Mr. Kyle Hunter, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I didn't take myself off mute. My bad. I got caught by the mute.
That's button. Okay. That's okay.
It'll happen once in a while. I'm doing well, guys. How about yourselves?
Can't complain, Kyle. Thank you. We were 3-0 again last week, I think, on our Thursday show. That makes 6-0 the last 2 weeks. No pressure, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm going to hold up my end of the bargain. Whatever you two do, hey, that's up to you. That's not on me.
That's what you got to love, a real team player, Kyle. You know.
So we're good to go. And hey, now Ross, I know you like the occasional. Kyle doesn't know about this. The occasional weather update. So I'm just going to give it to you. Is that this summer officially is the hottest summer on record in Phoenix history. Okay, so I'm just putting that out there. It was boiling hot, and the average temperature was 97 degrees on average. Okay, obviously converting the highs and the lows of the days. So pretty remarkable from that standpoint. But things are cooling down now, and but I'm ready to get hot. Okay, in football this upcoming weekend.
I'm with you, my friend. You know, college football upon us. We're recording on Thursday, like I said, the 14th. We have one game on tap tonight with Navy and Memphis. We have 3 games on tap tomorrow in college football, and then a full slate of game on Saturday. You know, Kyle, you look at this card, and it's pretty unappealing in my estimation. You know, there's not that marquee type game that we're looking for, several, and I don't think we're going to see any of those until we get fully into the conference schedule starting next week. But just your take, I mean, in how you view this card.
Well, I would agree that there's not some marquee matchup. I will say, I feel like any weekend that there's college football or NFL on is always a good weekend. And, we get to bet on these games, and there's some of those under the radar games where we find some great value. So I'm not going to complain. I will say, Ross, if you're looking for marquee matchups, wait for next week. We got plenty of those marquee matchups next week. Next week's going to be the weekend where next Saturday, you're going to need a lot of different TVs to try to keep everything going. Some fantastic matchups. But like I said, I think some of those sneaky under the radar games between two teams that most people are not too excited about, I think those can have some good value.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I always seem to do very well in these types of weeks, but from a viewing standpoint, the average guy out there, that was my reference point. Sure. Anyway, Doug, your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I don't know, Ross, when you're talking New Mexico State, and you said there's no big games. I mean, come on, okay? I mean, nothing goes on in the land of enchantment like when those two get together. And it's actually a very bitter rivalry. I've been to New Mexico several times, and it's one of those, these teams don't like each other deals, the I-25 rivalry. But you know what? Hey, it's to Kyle's point, it's still fun just to have stuff. Yeah, there's not any marquee matchups per se. Florida and Tennessee, I guess, sort of qualifies. But other than that, but like I say, we're here to go. We got work to do. We got 3 games to give out to people today that try to make their situation better and go 9-0 to start the college football season here at Gamblers World.
Before we get to those, Kyle, just what you observed in the NFL last week. Just curious, because I know you're a very good totals player, in 12 unders, 4 overs on the NFL card last week. Just your general observations, if you want to share that with the folks.
Yeah, I kind of thought that a lot of the games looked really sloppy, especially early. It kind of looked like, the teams that didn't play in the preseason. And it was almost like, it was a warm-up game. I think some people have taken from that scoring going to be lower in general. I would be hesitant to just assume that the rest of the weekends are going to be adjusted that much lower. The NFL does want points in these games. I mean, they're not going to want every game to be 10-6 or something. So, don't be surprised if going forward we start seeing some defensive penalties and things to get the scoring going. So I don't know if it'll be this week, but I think long term it'd be something that I'd be paying attention to. The game that I thought was super interesting was the Dolphins and Chargers. We talked about that game last week. I thought Tua looked fantastic. I don't know if that was more about the Chargers defense or the Dolphins offense, but the Dolphins still kind of underrated to me when it comes to an offense. I mean, we know Tua could get hurt at any point, but if he's healthy, everybody's ready to go there. That Miami offense is really good. Obviously, my Bengals played terrible last week. Just a horrible showing. Burrow without the preseason has been a problem multiple times in a row now. I do think some people are kind of going south on some of these good teams, the Bengals, the Bills. Ross, I know you're a Bills fan.
Yeah.
Some of those teams that they're far better than they looked in week one, and there can be so big overreactions to 1 week.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go with it. The biggest fault of a lot of sports bettors out there, and I said this on yesterday's show, is between week 1 and 2 in the NFL, the overreaction from what you saw the week before and what's coming up on tap in week 2. And sometimes, folks, you look at performances from week 1 and teams aren't as good as they looked in week 1, and others aren't as bad as they looked in the latter Kyle just brought up, in my opinion. I know Doug is very high on Miami, but the one concern I would have if I'm the Miami Dolphins, and I think we talked about this briefly on Monday, Doug, when you were on the show, is yes, they look terrific offensively. Tua didn't have to wash his uniform at the end of the game because the Chargers didn't lay a paw on him. And if you give him time to throw, he's one of the most accurate throwers in the NFL. But my concern with the Dolphins is, again, they gave up close to 220 yards or more in that game on the ground. And that's a Chargers team last year was near the bottom of the pack in terms of running the football at 87 yards a game. Your thoughts, Doug?
Yeah, well, obviously they're going to have to clean that up. I mean, the Chargers did a fantastic job in coming up with that game plan to run the ball, and they still score 34 points and lose. I mean, you'll take your chances with that more often than not. I'm not saying, but obviously the Jet situation changes a lot of things now in terms of how we're going to view Miami just in general. I still think I still really like this team. I think they have the potential to beat teams offensively, and the defense has got to improve. I'm not going to overreact to what I saw in terms of the defense. I think the defense will get better. What I'm actually really interested in the NFL in particular this upcoming week is the 0-1 teams facing each other. So who's going to start 0-2 and have to dig out of a hole? Not to say that's not impossible, especially now playing 17 games. But history has shown basically, you start 0-2. You got a lot of work to do, okay, to get things turned around. So really interested in those games.
Yeah, and there's some games 0-1 versus 1-0, like tonight, the Minnesota Vikings, who were upset by the Tampa Bay Bucks in their season opener at home. They were a -3 turnover differential in that game. They had a wide edge in terms of total yards in that contest. But total yards doesn't win you games. Scoring points does. Fundamentals do. Turnover differentials do. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, the Bills are up against it now, 0-1. They certainly don't want to be 0-2. Cincinnati with a tough game against Cleveland. Again, an 0-1 versus 1-0. Not only do they not want to start 0-2, they don't want to lose to a division rival and be down 2 games to Cleveland right out of the gate with Cleveland holding the tiebreaker. So a lot of intriguing stuff coming up. But let's get to the college football games at hand that we're going to discuss. Doug's going to be looking at Washington, Michigan State. Kyle will be looking at my beloved Syracuse Orangemen. at the Purdue Boilermakers. And I'll look at, folks, I know all your Colorado fans are wondering when we're going to talk about your team. Are we going to talk about it again this week? We are. Colorado State and Colorado. I'll be covering that. So you can beat me up all you want. Maybe you won't after my analysis. Anyway, let's start with you, Doug. Washington, Michigan State. Michael Penix Jr. has looked absolutely terrific in the first 2 games for the Washington Huskies. Michigan State's got some issues. I'm just wondering how much it's going to affect them with Mel Tucker being suspended. So a little bit of soap opera kind of dialogue going on there. And Michigan State's off to a 2-0 start now, albeit they haven't faced the stiffest of competition by any stretch. But your take, Doug. Right now, Washington State minus 16.5, and the total in that game, 55.5.
Well, one of the biggest surprises to me, and this is no disrespect to Kyle's game that he's going to talk about, but this game's going to be on the Peacock Network. I mean, you got the number 8 team, okay, in the country, and again, nothing against Purdue and Syracuse, but that's the featured game on NBC. So I was a little surprised to see that, and it's going to be in primetime. Oh, you know what? I shouldn't have said primetime because that relates to somebody else. It's going to be at 7:30, okay, from that standpoint. But from this standpoint, one thing you cannot ignore is the elephant in the room. Mel Tucker suspended without pay for conduct that is unbecoming of a person in his position that he holds, and it's I guess especially seemingly egregious is that he brought this young woman in to speak to the players to talk about her trauma, before the season. So I'm going to get to the Spartans in a minute. That just kind of the overview of what's going on, in terms of what's going on with Michigan State, the program. Now, Washington, you mentioned Michael Penix Jr. averaging 472 yards of passing offense. This is the number 1 passing team in the country. But here's a little concern that I have about them. 2-to-1 pass to run ratio. Now, they're averaging less than 100 yards per game rushing. Now, in Seattle, the weather does change once October comes. And so, it's windier, it's rainier. I mean, it's part of the deal. And, and they're going to play in some other places that are going to be not so great in the Pac-12. And I just wonder a little bit about if you can just keep throwing the ball that much and not running the ball. So that's a bit of a concern. So I'm curious to see what they do on the road this week. Now, Washington defense relies completely on pressure, generating negative plays. They've only given up 14.5 points per game, but they've given up 360 yards. So, I mean, you can move the ball, on Washington. Now, the Michigan State situation, I'm going to bypass the numbers, what to look for from them, everything else. I think the biggest factor in this game is the emotional state of the team. Washington's coming to East Lansing. My initial thought Monday or so was that they should easily cover the 16.5 points. But the more I thought about it, this event occurred last Sunday. The interim coach was announced. They also brought in Mark D'Antonio to help, okay, with the whole situation this upcoming week. And to borrow one of your Buffalo things, Ross, that we've heard from Chris Berman over the years, I got a feeling that the Spartans are going to circle the wagons, okay, in this one. And I think you're going to see a real emotional effort from Michigan State this upcoming week. Do I think they win? Absolutely not. I'm going to pick a score here of 34 for Washington, 24 for Michigan State. And I'm going to take Sparty to cover the number in this one, Ross.
Yeah, well, you make a good case. And you're going to take Michigan State plus the 16.5 over Washington. That's Doug's official pick. I don't know. Here's the thing with me, with Mel Tucker. Cast the whole thing aside with the young lady, okay? I think it was a blatant overreaction by the Michigan State athletic department after he had that one successful year to extend his contract 10 years for mega money. And you can't tell me that after last year that they're not second guessing themselves for doing so. I'm not trying to imply there's some conspiracy going on, but I'm just saying, Kyle, any thoughts?
So I think we'll probably agree more than we disagree here, but I think I kind of disagree with Doug on this one. I can't bet Michigan State in a game like this. It's not going to be, one of my favorite bets of the week or anything, but I have to look toward Washington. Michigan State has one massive weakness as a team. Their secondary is really bad. They cannot stop the pass. Penix, if he has time to throw, I trust Kalen DeBoer to put them in really good situations. Washington so far this year, #1 in the country in pass blocking grade. Michigan State likes to bring heat. I don't think they can get to him too much. Penix lets go of the ball pretty quickly too. So my concern would be there's going to be a lot of wide open receivers for Washington this weekend, and Penix is really good in this offense. Washington already has 10 plays of 30 yards or more so far this year. The Washington secondary was bad last year. Their numbers look pretty good this year, but it's against Boise State and Tulsa. So, we'll see. Noah Kim has been pretty good for Michigan State. If I had to bet a total here, I think I'd bet the over. So I think Doug and I agree a bit on the over because the number is a little lower than that. I think both teams can score a decent amount here, and the total's not set at too high of a number. The thing I'm thinking is it's hard to handicap motivation when it comes to a situation like this because if Michigan State comes out and plays the best game they could possibly play, and it's like, well, we're going to circle the wagons, like you said, it wouldn't be totally stunning. We've seen this happen before. At the same time, I don't think it'd be totally stunning if they just lay down and get blown away. I think that makes this one a tricky one to bet. So I'm looking more at the numbers and saying, I think Michigan State's pass defense is just so weak. Somebody's going to say, well, look at Michigan State's pass defense so far this year. The two teams they have played this year cannot pass at all. So, it doesn't matter at all to me what they've done in those two games compared to what they'll see for Washington. So I'm going to lean Washington here and also lean over the total.
Yeah, I think it's imperative if Michigan State wants to stay in this game that they get off to a good start, because if they don't, I think things could snowball early in going to Doug's and Kyle's point on the emotion involved. I think we'll know right away what kind of emotion the Michigan State tends on playing with. I sort of tend to believe Doug because in situations like this, not on the pick itself, but the emotion standpoint, situations like this that I've witnessed in the past, always seems like teams, at least in the short term, step up to the plate when they're in this kind of predicament. Now, what will it last over the long haul? It's possible. We've seen interim coaches step in, and I'm not saying that he's going to be fired, Mel Tucker, but you got to believe he's in pretty hot water at this point. Interim coaches step in college football and do quite well and actually secure the head coaching job the year after. So very intriguing side note to that game in terms of the emotion involved with Michigan State. And, I have a lean toward the over. I agree with you there, Kyle, because Michigan State's actually, even though the competition they've faced in the first two games leaves a lot to be desired, they've shown a willingness to throw the ball more than I've seen in the past. And they've done it pretty well so far. Now, how that measures up against a Power 5 opponent, it remains to be seen. So there's a lot of unknown going into this matchup. It's a game I'm not willing to touch, but I certainly will be willing and very interested to watch. So, all right, Kyle, Syracuse and Purdue. This is an appealing matchup. If you just look at the line itself, with Purdue being Syracuse being a short 2.5-point favorite on the road. The total is 57.5 in this game. The Orange coming off 2 blowout wins against inferior opposition. Their starting quarterback, Garrett Schrader, played the first half in each of those 2 games and did not play at all in the second half. Purdue, after losing that heartbreaker at home against Fresno in their season opener, they bounced back last week with a nice win at Virginia Tech. Your take, Kyle?
I think this is a pretty interesting game. This is one I will want to follow. Syracuse, to me, is still an unknown. They haven't played anybody. Ross, I'm going to be curious your thoughts on this because I know you're a Syracuse fan. I'm a little bit surprised Syracuse is favored on the road, -2.5, because maybe they're good, but I don't think we know that yet because you beat up on Colgate. Western Michigan is next level bad. Like, I know the MAC's bad, but they're a really bad team. And Cuse has sped up their tempo a bit. I think that's why the total has gone up to 57.5. I think it might have gone up a little bit too much here. I'll get to that in a minute. But Purdue, they lose at home to Fresno State. Then they go to Virginia Tech, hold Virginia Tech to 14 rushing yards last week. Now, I'm pretty low on Virginia Tech, so I don't think that was a great win or anything. But still, you go in there. There was like a 7-hour rain storm delay or something on that one. I remember that one was like a noon game that finished at like 9 o'clock at night or something. So after the delay, Purdue comes out, plays great defense. Virginia Tech didn't score a point in the second half. So, I think this is an interesting game between two teams who are kind of still a bit of unknown. We don't know if Purdue is going to be really good. Ryan Walters, I think, is a high upside coach. He did a great job with the turnaround for Illinois defensively. Remember what Illinois was defensively when they had Lovie Smith. I mean, just an absolute sieve. They couldn't stop anybody. And then Ryan Walters turns it around. I think Ryan Walters made Brett Bielema look really good there for a couple years. We'll see if, Bielema's teams can hold it together without him. For me, the thing that helps Syracuse a lot is Rocky Long as a defensive coordinator is a great hire. I thought that was a fantastic hire. I don't know if Syracuse's offense will continue to look as good as they have, but I think Syracuse's defense will improve having a defensive mastermind like Rocky Long there. So for me, you see a guy like Rocky Long who's been messing with opposing offenses, giving them a really hard time for many years at this point. Then you see Ryan Walters on the other end, a tremendous defensive mind. I don't think you could say, more than 3 names in the country that are better defensive names than either of these guys. His total's been bet up. I have to take the under in this one. Hudson Card versus Garrett Schrader, kind of an interesting quarterback matchup. So I'm going to go with under 57.5 for my play here. I think this will be a tight game. Like I said, Ross, I'm kind of curious your thoughts here on Syracuse and their start too.
Yeah, again, I mean, you can't overreact to what we saw the first 2 games with Syracuse, as you pointed out. I mean, Colgate's, they looked like a Division II team, let alone a FCS team, and Western Michigan would probably struggle to be a top 25 team at the FCS level this year. So yeah, and they only had to play their starters in the first half of each game. Their wide receiver unit has overachieved a bit in the first 2 games, albeit against the competition they played against. I'm not convinced that as the quality of competition goes up, their passing game is going to be as effective. I also think Syracuse is going to struggle to run the ball this year, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on Garrett Schrader, his MO has never been as a pure passer. He's a multi-dimensional quarterback that could beat you with his legs and sometimes with his arms just because of his creativity in the pocket. So yeah, this is not a game I'm going to touch with a 10-foot pole. And you mentioned the head coach from Purdue, former defensive coordinator at Illinois. Just look what Illinois has done so far on defense. They've looked terrible in their first couple games defensively. So all good points. Kyle, your take, Doug?
Yeah, well, being from Illinois, I will tell you this, is that Ryan Walters did a good job, but he also had more talent the last 2 years than what Illinois has this year. All those guys graduated, and some of them went to the NFL. So that's a big change there. As far as the game itself, though, I actually like Syracuse here. I know Kyle said he thinks the line's off. I don't necessarily think so. I think this Syracuse team is better than people realize. I think that their head coach is under the gun, this upcoming season. So that's why, for example, bringing in Rocky Long to change things up. I think the offense, typically what we've seen from Syracuse the last couple of years, and Ross, you can back this up, they play better the first 4 to 5 games. That includes these non-conference games. And so Schrader, before he has, typically he gets beat up from running around, takes a lot of hits, and he tends to wear down. And that's the thing that, at least that I noticed from it. So I think he'll actually play well this week. And I'm not a big Houston Card fan from that standpoint. So I don't have a problem taking or giving the 2.5 points. Plus then I also have a system that applies here in terms of where the money is going on a particular team. And so far this year, it's 4-0, and it favors Syracuse this upcoming week. So I'll give the 2.5.
Yeah, well, you can make a case either way, and you won't get an argument from me.
Right.
Obviously, I'm a Syracuse fan, so I most likely is going to stay away from the orange in any games because my emotion gets involved. And once your emotion gets involved,
let me add one thing here real quick, Ross.
Sure. Yep.
I should have noted it in my breakdown, but I do want to say Oronde Gadsden has been questionable too, and he's a really important player for the Syracuse offense. So if you're betting this game and you have that information Friday night or Saturday, that's really important information, especially for Syracuse to see how efficient they can be offensively.
He's been their most effective receiver the last 2 years.
Yep.
And they moved him to tight end, but he's a hybrid tight end.
Right.
He's really not that true tight end that is going to pave the way for running backs and open holes. He's just they moved him to the tight end position because of the offensive style they play to create mismatches. So you're right. That's a huge factor in that regard. So, all right, let me take a look at my game. And boy, oh boy, Colorado State at Colorado. Yes. Look, here's the thing. All right, you want me to give Coach Prime credit? I give him credit. Okay, they've looked awful impressive in the first 2 games. I did not think that bringing in 85 new players was the way to build a program, but he's proven me wrong so far. Okay, we haven't gotten into the Pac-12 schedule as of yet, but an impressive win at TCU. I'm not so sure how good they're going to be this year. They're certainly not going to be the caliber team they were last year, and quite frankly, I thought last year they were a little bit lucky at times. So, but any event, they're going to be taking on Colorado State. The game will be played in Boulder, 10 p.m. Eastern time. Right now, Colorado is a huge 23-point favorite. The total in this game is 60.5. Well, Colorado, coming off that home opener, or Colorado State, coming off a home opener in which they were hammered 50-24 by Washington State. And a lot of people said they must be terrible. Well, maybe so. That might be prove in a long run to be correct. But Washington State, after what we saw last week in their performance last week, where they came up with a big win against Wisconsin at home, that's a formidable side. Now, having said that, look, they still gave up a ton of points in 50, ton of yards in 466. They did manage, though, to score 24 points in that game and have 320 yards passing, despite the fact they only had 20 minutes and 51 seconds in time of possession. So my point is if you really look at the time they had the ball, the yards they put up, and the points they put up, they're very capable offensively, especially against a Colorado team. I'm still waiting. Doug, you brought this up, and I'll let you touch upon it again after I'm done. But I don't know why Colorado State, although they didn't do much rushing in their first game, you got to think that they're going to try to expose that Colorado defense who's given up over 200 yards rushing in each of their first 2 contests. And that certainly would open up play action pass. Now, having said that, I don't know how Colorado State's going to stop this Colorado offense, especially the way Shedeur Sanders is playing right now. First 2 games, this kid has been lights out, 69 out of 89, 77.5% completion rate, 903 yards passing, 6 touchdowns against 0 interceptions. He's averaging 10.1 yards gained per passing attempt, which is an astronomically high figure. And Colorado, they play at a lightning fast pace. Their first 2 games, they averaged 79 offensive plays per game, 81 in their previous game against Nebraska, 77 in their season opener. And one thing that Deion Sanders did extremely well, amongst a lot of things right now, is he brought in very high quality, skilled offensive players. Great quarterback and his son, a cast of wide receivers that's in their opener against TCU. You had 4 guys go for 117 yards or more receiving. And they got a very good running back, the freshman running back, whose name escapes me. Kyle probably knows it, or Doug probably knows it. But at the end of the day, they didn't do much with him last week. But this is a very formidable offense. And I think both teams will have their way offensively. I'm not willing to take a side here. I don't like the fact this opened at 19, went to 23. I think that's too much of a jump for me to go in on the favorite here. I can't see Colorado State winning this game, but I do think we'll see a high-scoring affair in light of the total of 60.5. Even with the new rules in college football, I still like this game, Colorado State, Colorado, to go over 60.5. Kyle?
Yeah, I agree with you here on this one, Ross. The question is, when you look at a total like this, how many points? I like to look at how many points you think the underdog's going to score first. I don't think the Colorado defense is that good, especially on the defensive line, like you said. Now, can Colorado State run the football consistently? Will they run the football consistently? We will see. I know that both teams play very quickly. Certainly, the tempo is going to help out. To me, you have Colorado State changing quarterbacks to the Fowler, Nicolosi. Millen wasn't very good. The coach talked about we got to take some more shots downfield. The Colorado State offense, their problem is their offensive line is really bad. Now, Colorado doesn't have a great defensive line to force as much pressure on them as some teams would. And Colorado offensively, if you just take away how many points is Colorado State going to score, I look at the total and I think Colorado is going to score a lot of points in this game. I mean, they might get the majority of these points by themselves. It won't take too many from Colorado State. And then we know that Norvell goes and says something today along the lines of, I take off my sunglasses and my hat when I talk to men. And it's like, Deion Sanders already has plenty of, he gets these guys fired up about anything. I mean, you wouldn't have to disrespect him in order to get him upset. And then you say something like this when you have College game day coming. I don't know. I mean, I think Colorado's going to score as many points as they can in this game. And Shedeur Sanders has been tremendous. I mean, it's awesome for Deion to have his son be such an amazing player to transfer right over. I mean, he has over 100 dropbacks so far this year and doesn't have an interception, I believe. So, he is just taking great care of the football. 10.4 average depth of target. So usually you see these guys that don't have an interception, they're dinking and dunking, throwing these screen passes. He's looking downfield and still not turning it over. I think that's super impressive. Travis Hunter is a really good player. Colorado defensively, I think the 6.29 yards per carry allowed is going to be a problem at some point, and I know somebody in the YouTube comments, if you say anything negative about Colorado, it's probably going to be like, you don't believe, you don't, but I mean, Colorado's been great this year. None of us are going to deny that. They've done better than anybody could have expected at this point. I give them full credit for that. They have a very tough schedule, and I don't think they're going to lose this game. I think they'll blow them away, which is why I agree with Ross's play. But I do think it's, some of these people saying, Colorado to win the Pac-12, Colorado to, let's pump the brakes a little bit. This is a very good team, huge recovery story from last year. But they got some tough games coming. But Ross, on this one, I do agree with you. I think Colorado's going to put up a big number.
Yeah, Kyle, the last 2 weeks we covered Colorado games, and I'm black and blue from getting beat up by some of the comments, but that's okay. I heal fast. And Doug, Kyle mentioned the 9 to 5 or the game starting at 12 o'clock and ending at 9. Their Virginia Tech game last week. And I know you're thinking in the back of your head, what's so bad about that? That sounds like one of my drinking binges. Anyway, what's your take on this game?
I actually think Colorado's going to roll, in this one. So I don't mind giving the points. It's a lot of points. I don't mind giving them, especially at home. And the reason I say that, first of all, let's start with the speed difference in the two teams. Dramatically different. I would give Colorado State a chance if they played more how they used to play. So they would, slow the pace of the game down, play similar kind of to Wyoming, slow the pace, try and run the ball, try and slow everything down. And if that were the case, and Nebraska was doing that, by the way, last week, and then it just got away from them. And that's the problem with Colorado, because there's another gear. Colorado State does not have that extra gear. They don't have the speed on the perimeter, on the defense to be able to stop Colorado. So unless Colorado turns the ball over, I don't see how Colorado State stays in this game. As you mentioned, adding fuel to the fire, the whole aspect of what's going on, I say it's Colorado by 4 touchdowns in this one.
Yeah, and I could see that happening. It's just, I look at the betting splits on this, and overwhelming on Colorado, obviously. I just have a hard time pulling a trigger on a heavily bet side like Colorado, especially with the line movement from the opener to where it is right now. But again, Doug, you won't get an argument from me because I'm not willing to touch this game from a side standpoint. I do think we'll see a high-scoring, entertaining affair. I would be shocked if Colorado State doesn't at least try to run the ball based on what Colorado's done against the run in the first 2 games and open up some play-action passing. The team could pass. They were in obvious pass situations in their last game against Washington State because they fell behind so early, and they passed for over 300 yards. So, yeah, all right. So the official pick here for me is Colorado State over 60.5. Kyle Hunter likes Syracuse and Purdue under the total of 57.5. And Doug Upstone, he's going out on a limb. He's taking Michigan State plus the 16.5 at home against Washington. There you have it, folks. Just a reminder, we went 6-0 the last 2 weeks, us 3 on the Thursday shows. We're going 9-0. So follow us, make some money. But if you don't want to follow us on the free picks, you can follow our premium picks. And Kyle Hunter right now is number 1 at gamblersworld.net. He surpassed some other guy named Ross Benjamin, who had been in that spot for 6 weeks. I'm number 2. So, Kyle, tell the folks a little bit about what you may have coming up this weekend and what they could look forward to, and maybe some hot streaks that you're on right now.
Yeah, I'm 70-31 in my last 101 college football plays. Most of those plays are totals. I've done a really good job with those. I already have 3 totals up for this coming weekend. We'll be adding at least 1 more play here for the weekend. I already have my first NFL play, an upgraded an upgraded side play for me on ATS play of the week in the NFL. Be adding some more NFL plays as well. I went 61% in the NFL last year as well. So football has been really good to me. I'm going to try to make it another really good season. You can get all those plays over there at Gamblers World.
There you go. Kyle Hunter, one of the finest handicappers, not only in the country, in the world when it comes to sports betting. You heard his college football record, 70-31, folks. I think I could even do that math. It's a shade under 70%. Also, not quite as good in the NFL because he only hit 61%. Terrible. Anyway, Doug, tell the folks what's going on at DocSports.com for Mr. Upstone.
Well, I tell you, I wish I had the luxury of you guys as to where I could sit around and wait till Friday or Saturday to make my plays. But no. At Docs, it's 6 o'clock go time, Eastern time, to get your plays on Thursdays. So I got 9 plays coming up this weekend. I got 5 in college, 4 in the NFL. I got a best bet going on Saturday. Got an NFL best bet on Sunday. And I also have tonight, if you happen to see this early enough, I got a play on the Memphis and Navy game. That's also available. The prop bets, I've mentioned it, continue to do well. Not only in baseball now, but also in the NFL. Started 2-0 in the NFL on a 21-8 run in the on props across the board. Was at 72.4%, up over $3,600. Baseball, once again, late in the season, I'm rolling 47-28. The last 6+ weeks. So looking to continue to cash tickets on that. And of course, it would not be a Thursday unless I mentioned to Ross about the CFL. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. 11-5. I got a best bet ready to roll this week. So let's make it happen. Ross, take it away with what you got.
Love that CFL from Doug Upstone. You know what, folks? Even if you don't play the CFL, the guy wins in the CFL. If you invest in stocks, do you look at the stock board all night long? You don't have to watch the game. Pick up the paper in the morning. Well, who picks the paper up in the morning anymore? Look at your computer at the scores. And be happy when you see the results. That's all I can tell you.
Hey, Ross, one quick thing before you start.
Sure.
Besides looking at the paper, do you get your milk delivered to you too still?
Yeah.
Okay,
but I don't let my wife answer the door when the milk.
Okay. I just was checking.
That's the only thing I stopped. That got a little hairy there for a second. Anyway, thank you for bringing that to my attention, Doug. Anyway, had a terrible week in the NFL last week, going 2-5. But folks, if you've been following me over the years, I have great Septembers. Matter of fact, since 2010, as documented by Sports Capping, 80-41 now still in the NFL in September. That's good for 64%. I'm telling you right now, I'm unloading on the NFL this week. The rest of September, it's going to be great. Kyle, and not to get off track here, but Kyle just told you what his college football record has been, 70-31, and also 61% in the NFL. Why wouldn't you invest in this guy long term? If you go to gamblersworld.net right now, Kyle Hunter, you can get his college football annual package for $5.99, and you can get his NFL for $5.99, or better yet, for $8.99, you can get college football and the NFL. The guy's a proven winner. What are you waiting for? Anyway, you could do the same for me at gamblersworld.net as well. College football, 22-13 since December 3rd of last year. That's good for 63%. Major League Baseball right now on a tremendous roll, 36-20, won the last 2 nights there. So a lot of good things over at gamblersworld.net, where, folks, we guarantee our selections. That means if you don't win, you don't make a profit on any single game, multi-game daily packages, or any subscription plans of 30 days or less, we will credit your account back the exact amount of your purchase price. And you don't have to stick with that handicapper if you don't win. You can use any handicapper, and there's no time frame in which you have to expedite your next purchase. You can use it anytime and any which way you like. So again, we give you our personal guarantee in that regard. Most times than not, it's going to be a moot point because we have some of the finest handicappers in the country at that site. Don't forget to see Doug over at DocSports.com, me and Kyle over at gamblersworld.net. Folks, there's a like button right underneath our video, and hit it. I'm not going to do a Jesse Shule on you. You don't have to plug your ears. Just hit the like button. It's just a small way of your token of appreciation for the work, time, and effort we put in to these videos in this podcast to make you a smarter sports bettor today than you were yesterday. Till the next time, for Doug Upstone, Kyle Hunter, and Ross Benjamin, take care and God bless, folks.